and welcome to the second part of the presentation, Law of Attraction versus Law of Correspondence. In this presentation, I'll be discussing three key ideas that have to do with both the Law of Attraction and Law of Correspondence. The first being how our thoughts and feelings can be considered to be living patterns of energy and information. The second, I'll be talking about the concepts of entrainment, resonance, and coherence. Whereas the last part, I'll be briefly mentioning an idea that is considered to be also a fundamental part of manifestation work, which is the path of least resistance. Now, all of these key ideas and more can be found in an ebook that I have written and I'm sharing here with you for free. The ebook is called The 4 Elements of Manifesting Magic and Miracles. And you can find the link to the download page at in the description area below this video. So feel free, if you want to go more in depth into the practical side of manifestation, then just go ahead, find the link in the description area, and it's free to download. Okay, so the first part, as I have mentioned, like in the previous parts of this presentation in part 1, I have used certain metaphors and analogies to kind of like bring out better this angle of view with respect to consciousness and how it affects reality. And I have mentioned the idea of how consciousness, by analogy, can be considered to be like the ocean, the vast ocean, and that everything is made of it or from it, including what we refer to as matter. So basically this flips the coin on the materialist paradigm, which assumes that basically consciousness is something that comes out of matter and it's separate from matter. Whereas kind of like this perspective is on the other way around, that consciousness is more fundamental. Okay, so it is like this ocean that comprises everything. And the idea that I mentioned in part 1 was that our individual consciousness is like this vortex in this ocean. Imagine like you're kind of like high up and you're having a bird's eye view of the ocean, right? And you see this eddy current or this vortex within the ocean. That's your individual consciousness. And that vortex, your individual consciousness, is affecting the flow of water around it, according to how this vortex spins, its size, its speed. So, in other words, what this analogy is trying to bring forward is the idea that our dominant thoughts, our beliefs, and our feelings have effects on how things flow and align in our lives. And so, making certain outcomes and future possibilities more probable than others. Okay, this is the idea of how our individual consciousness, and this reflects back upon both the law of correspondence and the law of attraction. So depending on our dominant thoughts, feelings, and beliefs, it affects basically other things that we are connected to in this vast ocean of consciousness, including events or matter. Okay? Now, thoughts and feelings can be considered to be living patterns of energy. They carry energy and information. And it's a process whereby we simultaneously read and write information from and into a vast interconnected field of consciousness that unifies everything, the ocean. Both energy and information cannot be destroyed, right? This is kind of like a very basic principle also in the sciences and physics, that information and energy cannot be destroyed, but can only change and transform into other patterns of energy and information. So effectively, thoughts and feeling have a certain lifetime, some being more permanent than others, okay? Now, this is why this idea that thoughts and feeling have a certain lifetime is why different systems of knowledge and wisdom traditions around the world, they refer to the idea of thought forms. And what a thought form is, basically, it's an energy signature created by a thought, feeling, or intention that lingers on as if it has a life of its own, even if we are completely oblivious to it. So these thought forms can even, according to some beliefs, grow and feed upon other similar thoughts or energy pattern. A reference to this perhaps would be the idea in Western ceremonial magic, the idea of a servitor, which it's a bit of a complex idea, but put in simple words, is that the creator of the servitor, through intention, creates a living thought and feeling pattern that kind of like keeps on lingering as if it has a life of its own. And that energy and information pattern, that living pattern of information, can assist the magician, so to speak, to do certain tasks, okay, to help, like an assistant, like a being of service to the magician, to the creator of this living pattern of information. But aside from that, coming back to our discussion here, the thing is that we are accustomed to understand thoughts as being just a byproduct of the mind's activity that do not carry any weight or have any effect whatsoever. Okay? We think about thoughts as just being thoughts, and that's it. But if we are to hold on to the metaphor or the analogy of the ocean of consciousness and understand that everything is ultimately consciousness, energy, and information, then we see that thoughts also carry both energy and information. They are not something separate, like in a vacuum, like having no effect, or just being suspended somewhere. Okay, they are part of the ocean. They are part of everything, and everything is ultimately energy and information and consciousness. So we cannot consider any longer the idea that thoughts are just thoughts, and we have a thought and that's it. It doesn't have any repercussion on anything. This is where kind of like people who are more into reality creation and manifestation have this assumption very much into their framework of reality. Okay, they are very mindful and careful about what thoughts, what feelings, what intentions, what words they are putting out there, because they know that whatever they are putting out there might and will actually have effect to some degree. Some have a small degree, some others have a bigger repercussion on things, but all of them have an effect on things around us, okay? So what this means is that thoughts, feelings, and emotion have a substantial effect on our outer reality. Because once we create them, they will keep on living as a pattern, influencing, to a small or large degree, both ourselves and how things unfold around us. This is where the idea of resonance, as we shall see soon, and entrainment come in, and how it relates to the law of correspondence versus the law of attraction. All right? So, let's jump straight into the concepts of entrainment, resonance, and coherence. Now, once we think of thoughts and feeling as living patterns of energy and information, and that ultimately everything is so, then this is why what we think and feel can match and align to situations, people, and outcomes that carry the same vibratory frequency or energy information signature. This explains both the law of correspondence and the law of attraction. Now, let me just say something briefly about the law of attraction, because the key idea of the law of attraction is the key term, attraction. Now, me personally, I don't really subscribe to the idea of attraction, but more of resonance, coherence, and entrainment. Entrainment is a very, very fundamental process in both the macro and microcosm. Okay, so basically, it's an essential part of how the physics and metaphysics of the universe operate. Entrainment is, in really few words, entrainment is when one system affects another until the energy frequency of both systems equalize and enter into harmony and coherence through the process of resonance. Now, there are many examples of this. Like, even if you go on YouTube, you can find a lot of these examples of entrainment. Like, for example, the example of having different pendulums, bobbing around and kind of like moving at different rhythms and tempos. Okay, so they were set to move at different times, so they're basically out of sync, all of them. And after a few seconds or a few minutes, all these pendulums will enter into entrainment, into coherence, and they start going and swinging into sync. Okay, so this is essentially the phenomena of entrainment. And this can be also seen in other physical systems, but also biological systems. Let's say, for example, one of the common examples in our biology, and this especially goes to our female audience, is that it is known that if two or more female are sharing the same space, living and sleeping in the same space, they will end up having syncing their menstrual cycles, because even biological systems respond to entrainment. Okay, so different systems, whether physical or biological, given enough time and sharing the same space, will basically enter into coherence and entrain each other through resonance. Okay. Now, following that thought, following that idea, that thoughts, both consciously intended or subconscious, and feelings can manifest an outcome is not exactly that thoughts can attract things or situation. Okay, it's the analogy of attraction and kind of like a magnet attracting things together is good, but it's not precise. Seen from the point of view of entrainment and coherence, it is more as if the energy information from your thoughts and feelings resonate with a similar one in a possible future timeline. So basically, it's as if, and this is where the law of correspondence comes in, because the law of correspondence says that what is happening inside of you, your inner states, have to be reflected by what is happening outside of you and vice versa. Okay? Now, whether that is a future possibility or something that is basically happening around you right now, but that law of correspondence applies. So what it's saying basically, that if, for example, I'm feeling a feeling of gratitude, and my mind's eye is projecting, I am seeing as if that's something that I want to manifest in my life. I am seeing it as if it is happening right now. Okay, using the power of the imagination. And also, once again, my feelings are attuned to that, and they're feeling gratitude as if I am already receiving that thing and I'm living it. So that energy signature, that vibration, okay, enters into coherence through entrainment with a future me or a future possibility of me that is already actually living out that thing. Okay, so what happens then is that those two states, okay, me now and that possible state, enter into coherence through entrainment. Okay, so that effectively you can say that through this process of entrainment and coherence, you jump into that possible timeline. Okay, so it's not like you're attracting that thing from the future to your present, but it's like you are resonating with it and you are entering into this entrainment and you become it. So even once you enter into entrainment through the feelings and through the imagination, through the thoughts, through the beliefs, you enter into entrainment with that possible you that has that thing. Through the law of correspondence, the outer things that your possible you is actually living out have to also come into your reality. Okay, so you are aligning yourself to that timeline, and then you are creating all the external circumstances in your current timeline. Okay, it's as if you are actually jumping from one timeline to the other. So that is a different angle. Rather than seeing it from an attraction analogy, we're seeing it from the idea of entrainment, resonance, and coherence. Now, I do admit that the idea of affecting and resonating with an event that still has got to happen, like in the future from our point of view, doesn't make much sense at first. From a common sense point of view, at least it doesn't. But if we have to go back to the analogy of consciousness as being the ocean, we can also start changing our perception on time and how we think about past, present, and future. Consciousness is both in time and outside of time. It's multidimensional, okay? Now, we think of a definite passage between past, present, and future, okay? We are accustomed to think about the passage of time as being linear, okay? Like an arrow of time that, yesterday was past, today is present, and tomorrow is future. However, from another point of view, all states, whether past or possible future, with regards to our current states, are all part of the vast ocean that are outside of time and paradoxically, all exist in the present. So basically outside of time. Now what this means is, if all possible states and information are present, are outside of time, then it is easier to think of vibrations and frequencies entraining each other or resonating with each other. Because then we are, we are kind of like stepping out of the concept of time. Okay, and all of a sudden it's as if these possible states are within the same space. Okay, no, it's as if then it's as if like the pendulums who are within the same room and in the same space, and they start swinging, and then effectively, because they are in the same space, they enter into coherence, into resonance, and train each other. The same idea here, when seen from the analogy of consciousness as being the ocean, and within that vast interconnected field of consciousness, it encapsulates and it contains all possible states outside of time. Okay, what from our point of view we consider as being still in the future. Then when you see it from that point of view, the idea of resonance and coherence is not that much of a paradox, because they are all possible states contained within the same field of information and energy. So the vortex in the ocean metaphor then gains another level of meaning here, which is, as you change the flux of the vortex, meaning changing your energy, your inner states, your beliefs, your intentions, you are also changing this living pattern of energy and information. That in turn enters into resonance and coherence through entrainment with similar patterns, irrelevant of whether they are, from your point of view, still in the future or on another timeline. So, once again, we can say that we align and enter into coherence with certain future possibilities or timelines way more than others, because we are resonating with it. We enter into coherence with it, and we are entering into the phenomenon of entrainment with it. And so by doing so, we manifest them into our reality. So once again, to just summarize another time, if you change your inner states according to the law of correspondence, and you focus your mind through the imagination, and you align your feelings as if you have something that you desire, that you want to be present in your life. So once you change those inner states, you are focusing, you are locking on and focusing upon that possibility, okay? And once you are locking onto that possibility, what happens is through this cosmic principle of entrainment, you are basically resonating with it. And that possibility, among all the other possibilities, is the one that will basically have the greater chances to align and basically manifest itself into your current timeline. Okay, so this is essentially trying to put the two ideas here of the law of correspondence and the law of attraction streamlined together into one concept using the idea of entrainment and coherence. Okay, now the last part, which I want to actually briefly mention, but I will actually go deeper into this in a future presentation, in the following presentation actually. It's about the concept called the path of least resistance. Now, what is the path of least resistance? A very brief way of explaining what it means is using the analogy of water flowing down a mountain stream. Okay. Now, as you know, obviously, following the physics of our reality, the water will always follow the path of least resistance, no matter what. Because nature in general will always follow this path because nature is efficient. Okay, it will always choose the most efficient and energy-saving path, and that is the path of least resistance. Okay. Now, the point here about the path of least resistance is that even when we see how consciousness creates reality, we understand that it will always follow the path that offers the least resistance and complexity. And most often, resistance is internal, right? Whether it is our own mind doubting itself, or emotional conflicts and blockages, or more simply because our heart is not on board. And this is a very, very, very important concept to reality creation and manifestation. And I actually write and explain more in depth about it once again in the ebook, The 4 Elements of Manifesting Magic and Miracles, which you can download for free. Link is below this video. And I go more into depth on the idea of the path of least resistance and why it is so crucial to reality creation and manifestation to have your heart on board. So I will leave you to this one simple but powerful statement that as I said, I will cover in a future video that I have planned, which is that the most obvious way to follow the path of least resistance and enter into coherence and resonance with our future goal is to create balance between the heart and the mind. Once the heart and the mind are in balance, okay, you can create anything, basically, okay? So look for this first and foremost. Make them talk and agree on the very basic things. And I guarantee you that everything else will either flow or just take off and fly. So I'll stop here in this second part of the presentation, the law of attraction vs. the law of correspondence. Once again, I hope you really enjoyed this talk. If you have any comments or questions, please leave a comment in the comment section, and I'll be really, really happy to look into it and offer an answer, perhaps. So I'll leave you here, and I'll see you to the part 3 of this presentation.